I'm Gavin, I'm Principal Consultant at Datafort, and my job is to really go into organisations and show them how to make AI work effectively for that organisation. Today, I'm going to keep it brief because I know we're short on time. I want to cover two main areas. First is how we recommend you would approach an AI initiative. That can be something as small as training some people up to use some of the tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, or a fully fledged integration. But we think there should be the same structured approach for both types of initiative. I'm also going to go through a couple of case studies, keep it very high level, but also some key pointers about ways that you could maybe use AI practically to get a better result for your organisations. So that's, now obviously I'm going to be thwarted by the clicker. When we go into organisations, we typically find that people fall into two camps. One camp, they're launching projects, very business driven, very business first. They treat it like a capital project. They've got it all costed. They know what they're trying to achieve. The other category, it's much more a tech playground. They tend to be earlier in the journey, driven by an enthusiast who looks around at the models out there and just starts playing with it on their system and using it for their own tools. Our view is that's a perfect way to start. If you don't have somebody in your organisation now doing it, it's a good time to start getting someone looking at it, looking at what's possible within your business. And literally that first step is playing around and getting the best out of the tool. But once you actually want to move on from that, launch an initiative to deliver real business value, you kind of need to make that migration from a playground into a business first approach. And the reason for that, there's a few reasons for that, but three that we always identify as problems. First, if you're still in that playground mode, it's great, you've got the enthusiasm, but there's no real structure to what you're trying to achieve. The metric, there is no metric. You haven't defined, this is what we want to get out of this project. And the outcome tends to be some great ideas, some great tools, but then the budget dries up, you move on and nothing actually gets delivered. So it's a starting point, but should be seen very much a starting point before project initiation. Once you start that project, question we're typically asked, what do we look at? You know, how do we start using AI within our organisation? What we suggest, whether it's at an organisation level, a department level, a process flow, or even your own work, what you should try and do is, what are the three things that cause you the biggest pain? Take those three things, and then of those, identify the one thing that requires the most human judgment, individual judgment. If something is black and white and algorithmic, yeah, you can get a spreadsheet or you can get a standard bit of software to do it. What you're looking to find is that problem that causes you a headache that you look at and think, yeah, this needs a certain amount of judgment, it needs expertise, data-driven expertise. That is typically the best project to use as your starting point, because it's going to deliver real value and show how AI can change the way your organisation operates. Once you've chosen that project, there are three questions you need to ask, and you need to get these answered before you start moving forward. First is the metric. What is it? I'm going to go into more detail on this on each slide, but the metric, what is it you're going to deliver? What are you expecting that system to do? Second, value, and that's in, I was going to say dollars and cents, speak to too many Americans, pounds and pence, how much you will get from that initiative. And the third is the deliverable. When do you know it's been delivered? You know, what are you expecting to see? And they're all critical because they build on one another, which is what I'll show next. So the first one is, what's the metric? What are you trying to achieve? This isn't an airy-fairy, hand-waving, oh, well, it'll improve efficiency. It'll make us more competitive. You need to drill down onto a particular deliverable you want. I mean, the example I've got here, reduce contract review time by 80%. You need to write that down. You need everyone to be focused on, this is what our outcome should be, because that stops you going off on a tangent and thinking, oh, this is interesting. What happens if we do this? And we use it in our own organisation. You know, when my engineers say to me, hey, I've got this great idea, we ask the same three questions, because you have to have that clarity before you kick off. Second thing is the value to the organisation. Some of these are very straightforward. You know, the example I used before on the previous slide. If you're going to cut your contract review time with your solicitors, you know what that's going to save you in hours every month. That's your saving. So that's a clear value proposition. Some are less cut and dried. You know, I want to improve my internal sharing of information. So then you have to drill down with the team. Okay, what are you getting from that? I mean, an example, one customer, they wanted to share development team expertise back to the sales department. Why did they want that? Because it took 4 days to get a proposal out to a customer. Why did it take 4 days? Because it was getting the time for specialists and all that knowledge was siloed. So they wanted to be able to get that information out in a usable form, so to cut that down to a day. So that then gave you, okay, that's a metric. How many customers are you going to gain from doing that? That gives you the value. So sometimes it's not straightforward, but you want to get that value proposition nailed down, because that's what will justify the budget when things get a bit difficult and you're trying to explain why that hasn't achieved yet. Third, how do we know when it's working? For anything but a small project, have a pilot, have a proof of concept. Show the whole process working and make sure that you get the value you thought you were going to get. By doing that, it allows you to then say, okay, now we can roll this out enterprise-wide. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about sounds like, oh, this is big company stuff, but it's something that has real value for small companies as well. It's across the board because it gives clarity to your project. It keeps everyone working on that project clear on what they're trying to achieve and stops it going off on a tangent. So I'd recommend, even for sort of quite small initial projects, try and follow an approach similar to this. Make sure you've got those 3 questions answered before you kick the project off. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to say is AI, it's very easy to get caught in the hype. You know, this is going to revolutionize your business. This is going to be a real game changer. And it will, but if you do it properly. And what you should do is treat it like any other capital project. Think about what you want to achieve, what it's going to cost you, and how you're going to recognize when you've done that. Now, something that was mentioned earlier, something that we're offering is one of our consultants to come in and help you with that process. What that will look like is there'll be initial 20 to 30 minutes phone meeting just to understand a bit about you, a bit about what you're doing, so we can do some initial research. Then one of our consultants will come in for an afternoon and sit down with you and guide you through that question asking. So what's a good project for you to start with? What are the initial questions? What's the value proposition? And get that documented into a proposal. We're doing that as an offer to your organisation free of charge, and there's no obligation to then use us for any follow-up, because it might be for small projects. We can go in, we can say, yeah, you need one of these, one of these, one of those, put it together like that, and you've got a working system. So, that could be it. For larger projects, obviously, you may need to then have a follow-on. But from our perspective, it's a way of getting you on the right foot and delivering value for your businesses with AI. So that was the first bit. I'm not going to go through a lot of case studies because my colleague who's more on the marketing side said, yeah, that's going to be really boring and really dry. I just want to use 2 examples to show the difference in 2 different scenarios. One which is very obvious, one which is harder to quantify when you're doing those 3 questions. First one is a back office multiplier. So this was an accounting team. What they wanted was to cut their amount of manual processing of invoices by 85%. When I started speaking to them, I thought, well, hang on, surely this is nuts and bolts. The invoice comes in, it gets allocated. I think that showed more about my lack of understanding of accounting than anything. So what we had to do is look at that and allocate it correctly. Now, every invoice is different. Every invoice has its own challenges. So when we came to ask them what the value proposition was for this, what they looked at is they're growing, they've got a lot more invoices, we need another headcount for financial control. That's an X budget. What we're trying to do is automate it so that we can get better quality information and cut that, not have that extra headcount. So that gave us both the objective to reduce 85% the number of manual processing and the value proposition, the extra headcount. So the last thing was, okay, how do we know when that's been delivered? And again, this is a very nuts and bolts project. So that was easy. We took one department, we did process that information, and we got it to the point where it was doing 85% automatically. hit all the criteria, they could roll it out. So when you have a problem like this, it's very easy to answer those 3 questions. Everything is black and white. Next case study is a bit different. It's the one I touched upon earlier, where you've got a central pool of knowledge. And I talked about the sales processing, but actually that was a bottleneck throughout the organization. It was used, they were the delivery team, the development and delivery team. So they were progressing the product. They also provided support to their customers and support to the sales team. So that knowledge pool was a huge bottleneck in the growth of the organization. So what they were looking to do is get that knowledge into an internal support pool, which could also be offered to their customers as well as their sales team. So what were the metrics they were looking to achieve? As I mentioned, sales, they were looking to get the lead time from a proposal from 4 days down to 1 day. The belief being that that will increase sales, so they knew what the increased sales would be and therefore what the value is. They also wanted to get the metric on the customer side was repeat support requests on the same issue from the same customer. Because I think we've all been in that situation with support systems. It asks you a question, you answer it. It goes again. Before you know it, Amazon's the worst for this. You go in a death loop. It keeps asking the same questions and bringing you back to the same point, and you never move forward. And what they want to do is improve that experience for their customers, move it beyond the standard support type system where you're using the value of AI to really give a good customer experience and thereby reduce repeat visits. I'm going to touch on that in the last section, which is using AI and how to get the best out of it. But that was the requirement, that was the value proposition. Support, meeting the goals, again, a bit trickier because you make an estimate on sales improvement, you make an estimate on customer retention, but then that had to be tracked over a long period of time. So that third step, the gateway, was a more extended period just to make sure they were getting the improvements they expected to be getting from that initiative before it was rolled out organisation-wide. So that's just, I use those because they're 2 quite different examples. One is very black and white. You can see if you've, you can see if you've got the improvement. One, a lot more ambiguous about whether you've got the improvement or not. So I'm going to summarise. The way to approach your new AI project, new AI strategy project, first thing, ignore the hype. This isn't about using new spangly, wonderful technology. This is about getting business benefit from a technology which is going to change the way people do business. But you've got to approach it in the same way you would any business initiative. Identify your biggest business problem, which is causing you a headache every day if possible. That should be your problem. Ask the 3 questions. Make sure you understand the metric, the value proposition, and how you know if it's delivered. And then set up your team. And that's a key step. You have your internal team who bring the business knowledge. If you use external consultants, and you may not need to for all of these, but if you do bring them in, make sure part of that includes knowledge transfer. Because what I always talk to my team about, I'm old enough to remember the dot-com boom. And back in 2000, 99, 2000, everyone was saying, oh yeah, I'm an internet business, or I'm a bricks and mortar business. Now there's no such thing. You're just businesses that sell on the internet. And every company does it. AI will follow the same path. Now you've got, oh, I need an AI thing to do this, or I need an AI thing to deliver this value. 5 years' time, companies will be using AI, and it'll just be part of the fabric of what you do. You won't get away from that. You want your team, your internal team, to have enough understanding that they can grasp the opportunities and really understand, yeah, we can use it for this, we can use it for that. So that, I think, is just something to bear in mind whenever you do an initiative, and if you bring in outside people, make sure there's that knowledge transfer for your own internal team. Last bit is how you can actually get AI to give you value, which is a broad subject. This is one thing which we think is key to delivering any kind of AI initiative which uses your data. And to get the most value, you want it to use your data. Now, a lot of people, I mean, something I should have asked before, how many people here have used ChatGPT or Gemini? Is it? Okay, yeah, fair number. So I'm guessing if you follow the path most people do, the first thing you'll ask is, who won the 1970 FA Cup and who was Prime Minister in 1965, just to see if it knows anything. The second thing you'll do is ask it to do, write me a blog about this, or write me a press release for something you're about to release. And what people often find is what comes out is kind of very generic. It's well written, but it's very generic. It's not original, and it doesn't really give you the oomph that a personally written piece of content will do. A lot of that is because of the way they're using it. If you imagine what you're asking the model to do is you put a sentence in and you're asking it to produce a whole ream of 500 words, let's say, of well-structured, original, impactful text. That's not going to happen, because if 1,000 people ask the same question, you're going to get the same thing. It's not going to be original. Yeah, we turn that funnel the other way around. What you try and do, especially when you're looking at a business system, is provide a lot of business information into the funnel, because you want to make it specific to you, to your business, to your style. So you push that information in to generate content the other side. So an example in our training sessions I always get people to do when they go back is get it to the press release idea. It doesn't matter if you're releasing a product or not. Do a press release, give it a sentence or a paragraph, see what it does. Then take all the marketing literature for the product, all of the promotional literature, some examples of your press releases, just load the documents in, and then get it to use that context, use that information, and generate a press release in the style that you use. And what you'll get is chalk and cheese. It'll be so much better. It'll be to your style. It will be insightful information about your product, because what AI is very, very good at is actually pulling out key information from a large swathe of data. Yeah, that's actually its strength. People are talking about its ability to generate content. Its real value is identifying content from a large corpus of data that is really key to the subjects being asked. And that comes back to the conversation I was doing about talking about the internal support system. You don't just, the way traditional support systems work, question comes in, it does a check, it does a lookup, what is the most accurate documents, and then it shows all those documents, and then you can read through them. Thank you very much, we're done. What AI allows you to do is take that, pull those documents in, find the most relevant information to the question being asked, deliver that out. If the person then wants to go into more depth, you've got their context, you can then query the data pool, pull in more information and sculpt something else. And you, as a person would, you're guiding them towards the final information. And that's something to bear in mind, even if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini, it has the same ability. If you provide it the information and then query that information, you're going to get much better results than trying to get it to use information that's pulled from the internet. It'll be specific to your business and what you want to achieve. So that's just something you should always think about when you're, even if you're just using the tools or if you're doing sort of full content system. So that's, that gives an overview. We've got some videos which we use in our training courses. If you want some, there are 2 or 3 videos which just show how to do press releases, how to do internal communications, that sort of element, using your company data. I can send those over if anyone's interested. I mean, Peter's got my email address, and we'll just send copies just to give you pointers to how to get the best out of both ChatGPT and Gemini. That's it, and any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you, Gavin. I do recognise we're over time, so what I'm going to suggest is if you have any questions, Gav's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to welcome you to go next door and get a drink, and I believe a snack or whatever is there left from lunch or whatever it may be, but anyways, there's going to be stuff there. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. Really do appreciate all your time and input. Hope you found it beneficial and useful. See you for a drink next door. If not, see you sometime in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you for giving